Mission Report, 8-6, Tango, Charlie. I arrived at LA on April 2, 2022. Thanks to the detailed information provided on Anthony Williams, I was able to locate him within a few hours of my arrival. He denied he had cancer in the first place, and attempted to avoid my questions about the anomaly. I tried reasoning with him, hoping to appeal to his better nature. But he was having none of it, and I decided to share some of the information I have on past victims of the anomaly. He did not take it well. He was scared and had a lot of questions, but he knew I would not answer them. He then told me about how he met the anomaly. These are my notes on his story. His condition had already made his life miserable. The diagnosis was just the icing on the cake. He recalled his desperation becoming so great, he was willing to do anything just to be rid of the pain, and of the impending death. He didn't remember the exact date, but he recalled exactly how he met the anomaly. He had introduced himself to Anthony as only a contractor. They conversed at length and the anomaly asked a great deal about him. He offered a cure, but Anthony was skeptical. Anomaly left, but returned after 2 days. This was repeated thrice until Anthony gave in, and a deal was struck. He was cancer-free the following morning, and did not hear from the anomaly again. The interesting part was that he made Anthony sign an actual contract on paper. He was told to use a specific red pen that the anomaly gave him. The pen, Anthony said, gave off a metallic smell as he wrote with it, and he recalled feeling tired after signing the contract. He said the anomaly told him he would come to collect what he is owed one day, and he never heard from him again. But now, he said, he realized he might be in over his head. Which was an understatement, to say the least. He didn't know how to contact the anomaly again. He was scared enough that he would tell me if he did. I thought that if I endangered his life, the anomaly might present himself, as he still had to collect on their deal. But it was a long shot. Anthony was a dead end for the time being. I had to investigate other avenues before I resorted to that. I told him I would search for this man, and to call me if he encounters him again. Before I left, I asked to use the bathroom and left a rune in the house. I didn't know if the anomaly's magic would trigger the beacon, but it was worth a shot. I then proceeded to track down and interview the associates of past victims. Not many who remembered them were still alive, fewer stuck around. Those I did manage to talk to didn't know anything of value, save for one. Lorraine Mabel, 86. She and one of the past victims were lovers when he came into money, and moved to LA together. She knew quite a bit. Wilson Taylor was in debt, lost all that he inherited from his family, and was desperate enough to do anything for a way out. That's when the contractor visited them. He and Wilson had an extended conversation behind closed doors. A few days later, Wilson attained great wealth, the source of which he never told Lorraine. They moved to LA a month later, and Wilson made investments that Lorraine is still benefiting from to this day. About a decade later, the contractor visited them again. He told Wilson it was time to collect, and they were once again conversing behind closed doors. A while later they came back, and Wilson looked sodden. He motioned for the contractor to go ahead, and turned his back. The contractor revealed a strange blade from under his coat, walked toward Lorraine, and withdrew the blade for a strike. This is when Wilson shouted for him to stop. The contractor simply replied that he must collect what he is owed. Wilson began crying, as the contractor turned to him. They walked toward each other, and clasped hands. Wilson placed his gun against his chin, and said, "I forfeit my soul in payment of my debt." The contractor replied, "Your contract is fulfilled. Wilson then shot himself. As the contractor was about to leave, Lorraine stopped him with a question. She asked him what Wilson had paid for, and he replied with these exact words: "The threads of fate were woven." Wilson wished to alter the pattern. A payment of luster must be paid, or a soul must be forfeit. This is the weaver's price for a life exchanged for a new one. The mere recalling of the events had shaken Lorraine, and I had already gotten all the information that would be useful to me. So I thanked her for her candor and left her house. I decided to go back to Anthony and keep an eye on him. This contractor was clearly a Class 5 entity. If he said what Lorraine said he did, it implied that he was capable of manipulating quantum wave function collapses at whim. Nothing any human was ever capable of was going to be enough to contain a being that existed in a higher dimension, but I had to come up with something. Either through sheer luck or a deliberate effort by the entity, I saw him entering Anthony's house moments after I positioned myself to monitor the house. I rushed into the house, and saw Anthony with a gun in his hand pointed at his temple. I asked him to put down the gun, but he was hysterical. He looked at me with wide eyes, and said, "He wants me to give him my daughter. I cannot do it. I won't." Then he shot himself, and as his body collapsed, I felt a magical surge. The entity turned to me, and said that my contract is ready. He ushered me into another room, where we sat down across each other at a table. He told me that he knew why I was looking for him, and that the Bureau could never contain him. But he was willing to make a deal. He said he represents a higher power, as I do. That we both had tasks of our own, and he knew all the details of my mission. He explained that I could not destroy him, but he could provide me the information I needed to complete my mission. Albeit as part of a contract, to which the supervisor would be beholden. I tried to argue that I could not make a decision for the supervisor without his authorization, but he assured me this was what he expected of me. I decided against questioning the knowledge of an interdimensional being, so I signed the contract that he produced from his briefcase, and he handed me a heavy folder. The entity left the room, and I spent a little while, inspecting the contents of the folder. I returned to my home the next morning to prepare this report. A summary of the information on the entity is attached.